Great to see you all. Thanks for joining the webinar today. Just hoping you can all hear me just fine. Maybe you can kind of give me a thumbs up. Just let me know that you can all hear me. That's great. So welcome to this webinar. It's really fantastic that you've all made the time to attend, giving up your valuable time to dedicate to this important issue. So thank you so much for coming. My name's Laura Sequeira. I have the pleasure of being an associate trainer for Transpire Training. And I have a background of working my whole career in professionally in mental health and well-being more generally. So I would also just like to just a warm welcome to Arshad, especially from UKMSA. Hi, Arshad's giving you all a wave there. It's a real pleasure to have you here, Arshad, and we'll be hearing from you later. So let's just to kind of get us into the topic, really. But before we do that, it would be great to just use the chat to let everyone know who you are. So if you open the chat within Zoom, you'll be able to click on the everyone chat and just put a message there into the whole group. Just maybe, how's your day been? One word to describe how your day has been so far. Or if you don't fancy that, your favorite flavor of crisps. So let's just get us all using the chat. That's quite handy to hate crisps, actually. Lovely. Thanks to John, Jonathan, and Mike who've shared. Just give the rest of you a moment to do that. Lovely. Thanks. Thanks, Mike. Great. Thanks, Arshad.
News delivered.
Just make sure everyone's able to just pop themselves on mute if you haven't already done so, just so we can avoid that feedback that sometimes happens. Lovely. Great. Thanks, everybody. So I'll just give everyone, do carry on if you've not had the chance to do that already. Warm welcome from me, and let's just move on to look at what this webinar is going to cover today. So yeah, trying to just like broaden our knowledge of what do we mean by this term that we use a lot these days, and what might be some of the facts or myths that we carry around with us about mental health or mental ill health, and a focus as well, particularly on men's mental health, which of course you're all used to in the work that you're doing in the sheds. What kinds of things affect our mental health and our mental well-being generally, and how can we work hard to recognize the signs and offer support? I'm just checking, just hold on a second, just checking the chat just to check I haven't. There's lines on the screen, Emma?
Yeah, sorry, there's just some red lines that have gone over the screen. I'm not quite sure how that's happened.
Yeah, I haven't pressed anything, so that's weird. Let me see if I can oh
Sorry
yeah, I
about
see
that,
those.
everyone.
Sorry about that. I don't
Just technical issue
actually
here.
know how that has happened.
Might just be worth maybe.
I think somehow it's clicked onto the.
Maybe just close
Do you
it
know
down and
what's?
share
I
the screen
will,
again.
yeah. Let me just stop sharing and
So
then.
sorry about this, everyone. We'll just reshare technical issues.
That's expected when we're live. Don't worry.
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
And I don't think the lines would affect your presentation,
Let
Laura.
me just, oh, thank you. I will just, I'm just going to go back and open it again. Yeah, it's kind of mysterious, isn't it, as well? I just need to be sure I'm opening the right one.
To see you all, Shadows. Lovely.
Let me just check. Yeah, so that should be okay. All right. I can see someone else is just joining us.
That's okay.
That should be good now.
It's just
Yeah, that's
loading
it.
for us.
Are we all good?
Lovely. That's great. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we haven't got
Apologies.
mysterious. No, thanks for pointing it out. Mysterious. Do you know, I actually saw it, thought it was part of the design. I thought I hadn't noticed that on the slides before. Fabulous. So, where were we? Yeah, just looking at what we're going to be covering today. And let's move on. So, Dom, there we are. So, just kind of some ground rules about what you can expect from today in terms of how we work together. So just to let you know, we'll be doing some polls. They're all anonymous, so how you participate in those polls is completely private to you. And I'll be encouraging you to put some comments in the chat. So do join in with that as we go through. Um, and we can all bring our different views. That's all really celebrated and welcome here, and respecting each other. So just the things that you're used to doing. And just be thoughtful about our contributions, as I know you would anyway. And most of all, look after yourself. You're here voluntarily. Do take a break if there's anything that you would like to just step out from. Obviously, this is like an awareness-based webinar. It's not clinical advice. So a reminder, just always seek professional support if needed, and definitely be here in whatever way is comfortable for you today, whether you're observing, sitting back and watching, or contributing. You don't have to share anything personal. So yeah, just be here in whichever way is comfortable to you. And we'll go to Emma now. Shall I stop sharing, Emma, and we'll go over to the poll?
That's okay. You can keep the screen up. I will just launch the poll.
Oh, great. I'll do that. That's fabulous.
Okay, so you should see a pop-up on your screen, everyone. If you do want to take part, please do. It is completely anonymous, and then we will share the results with you.
Amazing. So let's go to the first one. I'm just checking. Yeah, it's just coming up for me, Emma. So yeah, let's have a look at the first one. So when it comes to your mental health, which feels most true for you right
Can see some responses coming in. I'll just give
now?
everyone a chance to vote.
Definitely.
Can see that we've got a few people just finishing the answers. Thank you, everyone. We'll just give you a few more seconds here. If you do want to take part, please do. Okay, I can see we've got majority of answers coming through here. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results with you. Over to you, Laura.
Yeah, lovely. Can everyone see that now? Yes, excellent. So we've got a nice range, and that's what we generally find. We're all our unique selves, we're all individuals, we're all going to find ourselves somewhere different. And yeah, really good to see. We've probably got most people in the middle there, and we'll talk a little bit about those differences as we go through the course. So let's go on to the next one. So what do you think is the biggest barrier to people talking about their mental health? Everyone's voting away.
You should be able to
Lovely.
see the results on the second. If you scroll down on the poll.
Yes, I've got them. I'm just wondering if everyone has
Yep,
taken
they're all
part.
published.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, great. So let's just work through those again. Kind of really excellent to see, all of these kind of barriers, and good to see a range of opinions and views. So let's go on to the next one. So many of you voted on that one. So we're just voting on all of them. Yeah. Okay. So the biggest impact on people's mental well-being. Quite a few, yeah, quite a few of you going for all of the above. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to delve down a bit deeper into these as we go through the webinar. And just reminding ourselves, that our resilience can be, influenced by a number of overlapping pressures, usually rather than one single factor. And the idea as well of our kind of capacity can change, our capacity to respond to and deal with all the things that life throws at us, changes depending on what we're carrying at any given time, what's going on for us personally, what's going on in our lives, what's going on in the world. So yeah, we'll be exploring some of those things, the relationship between our mental health, and all of those factors, defining kind of how comfortable we feel, how readily we'll chat about it, and the different things that shape our responses. Okay, lovely. So let's go on to explore a bit together what we mean by mental health, what it is, and have a look at our mental health spectrum. Okay. So one of the things be really great to hear from all of you, and let's get back into using the chat again, is kind of what you kind of, when you hear that term mental health, what does it bring to mind? What does it mean to you? Perhaps how would you explain it to someone who hadn't heard the term before? So again, no worries about right or wrongs. We're just interested in everyone's different viewpoint. Never any right answers here. It's just useful things to add to our thinking and our discussion. Yeah, so Dave, thank you for sharing your thoughts there about, yeah, what we can often call masking or hiding what's going. So what's going on the outside can be very different to what's going on the inside. Oh, Laura, I'm so sorry your connection isn't great. Hopefully you might be able to watch the recording. So yeah, Mike, thanks for your comments. So yeah, we might think of it there. We'd
Laura,
include, wouldn't we? Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but you can put subtitles on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you haven't got good oral reception, put the subtitles on.
Oh, it's the other Laura, isn't it? Yeah, you're speaking to the other Laura. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's a really great bit of advice there. If Laura, if you can hear me, if you want to pop the subtitles on. Oh, we've already also got Chris is also saying the sound is bad. Let me just check in with Emma. How are you receiving me?
No, absolutely fine.
Okay, lovely. So that's a good tip there. So yeah, like how we show ourselves to others, like really helpful there. How we actually feel, not necessarily how people see us. Yeah, how we think, how we behave. Yeah, some really great suggestions in here. So let's just take your messages and let's build our understanding. So exactly that, how we feel, how we think, how we behave, how we respond to the demands that life puts on us. And we might see ourselves as really thriving at the moment. Maybe we're more in a coping stage. Maybe right now we're struggling, or we're feeling unwell. And some key thoughts really to summarize what you've been saying on the chat, and Arshad's popped in there about we change on a daily basis, but we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. It could be good at the moment, it could be not so good at the moment. And we all see that we're somewhere on this spectrum, and that might change from day to day, week to week, month to month. It's going to affect our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being and behavior. So how we respond to stress, how we relate to others, how we make choices. Sometimes we can get stuck in dilemmas, and that can link to the state of our mental health or well-being at the moment. And just as Arshad was saying in the chat, it's dynamic, it's not fixed. We'll respond to different life events, different stressors. And also it's affected by other factors. So things like biological factors, so things like our genetics, psychological factors, so what we've been through in our emotional life, and our social relationships. These all play a role. And generally it's the interaction between these things, not one of these things. So even something like genetics, it needs other environmental factors and social factors usually to be relevant. And just like we prioritize our physical health, we need to look after our mental health just in the same we do as take care of our physical health. So I'd encourage you all, now we've got this little spectrum on the screen, is just let's take a brief moment, a few seconds, just in silence individually, and think, where am I right now? Where would I position myself? And perhaps also, where was I yesterday, last week? Just a few moments of silence to reflect. Okay, and just as we come back to a whole group, just like to acknowledge Paul. Paul from Menage Heads has joined us as well. Just a quick wave from Paul there. Arshad's here, and now just introducing to Paul as well. Welcome here. Welcome to the webinar, Paul. It's really great to have you here.
Well, I'm here also as the UK Men's Shed Association's Health and Wellbeing Group.
Wonderful. Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much, Paul. Yeah, great to have you here. And we'll be hearing from you and Arshad, perhaps both of you, a little later on the webinar. Thanks for joining. Okay, so we're going to do some true and false now interaction. So ready when you are, Emma.
Lovely, thank you. You should be able to see a pop-up again, similar to the poll.
Are we doing them all in one go, Emma?
Yeah, we've got all
Yeah?
5 questions there for you.
Let's give you some time to do that.
If you
So
do scroll down, you'll see all 5. So please feel free to interact if you wish. Again, this is all anonymous. If you'd rather just see the results, then please just wait a few moments and then we'll share them with you.
yeah, fantastic. So off you go, everyone who would like to take part, and then we'll have a chat about them.
Lovely, I can see some results coming through. Can see about half of you have completed that. I'll give you all a few moments more to do that if you wish. Chris, I can just see in the chat, it's absolutely fine if you don't want to take part. It's not necessarily about knowledge, just more of an instinct feel. What do you think these statements, if they're true or false? But of course, if you don't want to interact, that's absolutely fine.
It's a great point, Chris, as well, as Emma was saying. Yeah, all of our interactions, really, everything about this course is just trying to raise issues for us to chat about. Definitely not a sense of any expectation of knowledge. They're there just to help us chat together and give us some good topics to investigate together.
Going to end this and share the results for everyone now.
Thanks, Emma. That's great.
Perfect. There you are.
Okay. So why don't we have a look at these together? So let's have a look at the first one. Around half of people with a diagnosable mental health condition receive no treatment. So it's actually kind of up to 75% of people, we think, don't receive any treatment. So what do you think about that? Why do you think that might be? So let's open up some conversation in the chat. If you would prefer to unmute and offer your thoughts, that's absolutely fine as well, whichever works for you. So why do we think it's actually more than half? It's up to 75%. Just a comment about the poll in the chat there, Emma, which I'll leave
I think
to you.
because, if I might come in,
Yes,
think
Dave,
people
please
don't
do.
necessarily want to admit how bad they actually are, and the affected, and also is the treatment going to be effective?
Yeah, really great point. So
Are we talking about clinical depression?
it's an interesting point. So we're not particularly talking about depression here. We're talking about a diagnosable mental health condition. We use that word diagnosable. So it means if someone was to seek a diagnosis, they would get it, or someone has a diagnosis. So this is mental health conditions generally. Yeah, so just as Dave was saying, kind of something about stigma, and we also have self-stigma as well. So we don't just have stigma towards others, but we also internalize some of those social messages that can mean that we don't seek help. And then some really good points in the chat about delays, delays accessing services, how hard it's to make a GP appointment, and how it might be hard, that it's perceived to be hard as well. So lots of current conversation about that, as well as the stigma, and maybe a lack of awareness as well, and understanding, and yeah, people giving up. Absolutely right. So let's have a look at the other one quickly.
And you've got to admit to yourself.
Yes.
And that can be a hard barrier.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Oh, yes. Sorry, that's my fault. I should have moved on to that slide. So let's have a look at the second one so we can go through the answers together. So thinking about depression is one of the leading causes of disability worldwide. And so, yeah, this one was true, which most of you were thinking along those lines. So we know that depression can have a really significant impact on daily life, etc., as it said on the slide. So we know what we can, it's common. And across the world, not just in this country as well, and can take a real toll on the quality of life. And we know that recognizing and getting support early can really, supporting struggles can really make a difference on what recovery looks like and outcomes look like as well. So yeah, support and treatment can make a real difference. Let's have a look at the next one together. So women are around twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with anxiety or depression. So, yeah, so looking at your results
is
there.
that
So,
because they seek
yeah, so
diagnosis more?
yeah, really great question. So what do we think, opening that up? Any other thoughts? Is it because they seek diagnosis more? And why might that be? We might ask ourselves. So,
is there more services for women than there is for men?
interesting. Yeah.
I think
Other
ladies are
thoughts?
more likely to talk and share. It's a sort of cultural thing of how women are brought up, whereas men sort of have, I'm not going to say stiff upper lip, but we don't have the same social circles and natural groupings other than those of us who've chosen to go to the men's shed to get such a thing. So I suspect that ladies are more likely to talk about it and be open about it, and therefore go and seek treatment through their GP.
Yeah, really well put. So yeah, we know definitely that higher diagnosis rates in women don't necessarily mean men struggle less at all, but men maybe, as you said, less likely to recognize difficulties, or seek support. Or
Do you have data on the actual numbers?
Yes, the statistics are, I think that's something that Emma would be able to send out after the webinar. All of these statistics are taken from various pieces of research and reports, which Emma can provide those details. So perhaps through our chat, so I can see her nodding there. So yeah, just trying to think of these themes, those struggles could go on for longer unseen. We also know that men may be struggling and may do what we call as self-medicating, so using other things in order to help themselves feel better. That might be, say, alcohol, for example. It might exacerbate the issue and prevent them, or could help them feel better in the short term, help them make them less likely to access timely support. So let's look at the next one together. So men are around just twice as likely than women to die by suicide in the UK. But what we actually know is men are 3 times more likely than women to die by suicide in the UK. And I think this highlights that what we've been saying, struggles are not always visible or openly talked about before reaching that crisis point. And I guess a reminder of why you're here, why you're doing the work that you're doing, joining the sheds, helping organise, to hopefully open up those chats, those light touch conversations before it reaches something so serious.
Small point. It's men
Yeah,
are 3 times as likely, not more likely.
three
More likely
times
to be
as
4 times as
likely.
many.
3 times as likely, absolutely. Yeah. So 75% of 75% of reported suicides each year are men rather than women. So that's where the statistic comes from. And yeah, Mike's put one of the reasons in a whole range of reasons for this. And yeah, so some people quite surprised at that. Yeah, and it's kind of typically quite globally as well, that's represented. Okay. And question 5, recovery from mental ill health is possible and likely for many people. Yeah. And so one of the caveats to that is, if, as it says here, with the right support, is it timely? Is it appropriate? Is it accessible? Is it coming to where people need it to be? And we know that recovery looks really different for each of us. And one of the things about recovery is it doesn't always mean an absence of symptoms, just in the way that we might have a physical health condition, but we may have a variety of things like medication or exercise or nutrition and our diet to like help us manage the symptoms. Works just the same way. So for some people, for some of us, it might mean symptoms disappear. And for other of us, it might mean we manage those symptoms, and they may be peaks and troughs of how that works. But recovery, we'd be thinking kind of improved well-being, some sense of stability, learning to manage the challenges. Yeah, some really important comments there about underfunding in services for sure. Okay, so let's move on to think about men's mental health in particular. And I think this is a really great summary of the things that have been coming up in the discussion so far, both in the chat and in the content of the course. Why do we particularly want to have a conversation about men's mental health uniquely? So, what are the social expectations? What have men grown up with messages, maybe around being strong or needing to, and somebody put about feeling responsible for holding burdens single-handedly, and maybe being less comfortable because of those social gendered narratives. But also we can understand it in a way that, struggles might look different for men as well. Poor mental health doesn't always look how we expect it to look. We can have lots of ideas in our mind of what it would look like if a man was struggling with their mental health. And that means that signs can get missed. It doesn't always show up in the way that we anticipate. And as Paul's popped into the chat, yeah, this idea of a stiff upper lip, not revealing a true feeling. So a real disconnect between what we see on the outside and what's the felt experience, the emotional experience, the lived experience on the inside.
Mm.
We also know, for all the reasons we've been saying, that support may come later. We know that delayed support can mean pressures build over time before someone reaches out. We also know that delayed support can mean that recovery is impacted as well, what it's like living with those symptoms and how well they either disappear or they're mitigated. And like we've already given the example, that impact can be really serious. And when we looked at those suicide statistics, there's no better example of how serious that is, that prevalence of and kind of disproportionate impact on suicide on men. And one of the things we absolutely know, and because this is the business you're in, is about connection. And this isn't just a nice idea. It is, as many of you will know, it is based in evidence and research. It is shown that human connection. So what do we mean by that? Open conversations, human connection, that feeling we get when we connect with another person, both as perhaps a listener and as someone explaining how they're feeling. And all of these things can really play such an important part in preventing something becoming a crisis, but also improving quality of life prior to a crisis. Okay. So, yeah, Mike's put a really important point in there, of course, about you've said, Mike, depression may be a reasonable reaction to some circumstances. Absolutely. So, we're always going to have context. Those life events, when it's normal, we might feel sad or hopeless or grief-stricken, worried, anxious about, a diagnosis or a financial situation, what's going on with family. And I think where we see our mental health being negatively affected, we often think about it as duration. So how long has it been going on, and what's the severity? What's the level of that impact? And as you say, Mike, what's the context? And are those symptoms being felt maybe beyond the context or in a way that is so adversely affecting somebody that they need support?
Could I make a
Okay.
suggestion? That a lot of it is about feeling you're in a supportive environment
Mm-hmm.
that's so supportive you can open up to reveal things you wouldn't normally reveal, even to your partner. And that's very much the case with the suicide that we had at our shed. Um, it, but I think he was very much putting a brave face on it and appearing to be as if there were very few problems, even though everybody knew he was a bit depressive.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, and that sounds like an incredibly difficult time for
It
all of
was
you
because he
involved
committed
in that.
suicide in the grounds of our shed. We presume it
So sorry
was
to hear that,
somewhere he
Dave.
felt
Thank
safe.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and for raising that really important point about those spaces that feel safe enough to open up, and they may be spaces, that exactly what your work is doing, opening up at those in the community
Mm.
where someone may be able to talk in a way they perhaps can't at home, and they may take a long time to talk. And of course, the sad thing is we can't always help. It sounds like, we just have to do our best. We're trying to do our best and hold our best intention. And we know that for everyone that's not always going to be enough to help them feel that life is livable. But thank you so much for
But
sharing that, raising that important point.
listening supportively is
Yes,
something that's very important
absolutely.
and can lead to them being even more open about the things. It's certainly
Yeah.
something I found when it took me a long time to reveal. And I think that's one difference between men and women, because men have the social circle and the trust between each other. That's why they talk in loos, whereas in a gents' loo, it's sort of in and out without saying anything to anybody.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. It's a really important point. Actually, we're going to be coming on to just talk about some of those really important bits about that supportive space that you've talked about. It's really helpful. Thank you. Okay, so let's have a look at challenging a few myths and assumptions together. Um, and let's just kind of again see what we think about some of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go one by one, but I'm going to slowly put them up, and I'm going to ask you to pop in the chat any responses you have to these things. We've kind of covered the first one a little bit and the second one, but any extra thoughts? Um, Maybe to you, is that your view? Do you have a different view? Again, there's no rights or wrongs here. There's no correct answers. It's just generating discussion and seeing where we're all at and how we might challenge some. And what you might recognize is maybe these are not assumptions you have, but perhaps you hear from others, those around you. So let's think broadly, not necessarily about our own views and opinions, but do we hear these said at all? We've talked a bit together, haven't we, about some of the things, the barriers that can get in the way of men opening up and what we might need to do to address that. But definitely this idea, as Dave was just telling us, that, if people can be highly functioning, engaging in life, and from the outside everything looks fine. And a really nice point from Nick in the chat, talking is a starting point, even if we worry. So we can often worry, can't we, that talking is going to make things worse, but we definitely know it's not the case. And creating that space to talk is really important. And yeah, strength does not equal doing things alone. Yeah, and some lovely, lovely comments coming in the chat there, echoing. One of the things we've talked about is that it's come up is just from what we're saying, struggle doesn't always look like sadness. And we're going to have a little look in a moment as how it might show up in different ways, maybe some unexpected ways. Um, and definitely any kind of talking is supportive. So yeah, some really lovely reflections in the chat, absolutely on the lines here, and how we can challenge some of those assumptions and myths. Clearly you're all involved in this work, but you might hear around you, and your work I think would really put you in a great position to gently challenge and talk to people about why they might hold those myths or assumptions. So let's have a look a bit in a little bit more detail about what can impact our mental well-being. And again, some of these have been highlighted. I'm not going to read out from the slide. I'm going to pop them up and let you have a look and browse the slide while I'm just chatting through a few through points. Obviously, as we were saying, some pressures can feel really obvious, maybe financial or work stress or relationship, aging, but others may be quieter but just as impactful. So maybe loneliness, a sense of disconnection, caring responsibilities, pulling us in different directions, ongoing stress, physical health issues. We know a bit about what we call the sandwich generation, where people may be at an age where they're supporting those dependent on them, both younger and older, whatever that family or friendship group setup looks like. So feeling caught between caring responsibilities in both directions. We also live in a world where we are exposed to a lot of negative news, a sense of global uncertainty on our planet, politically, environmentally. It's quite hard to switch off from those and also attend to our own well-being at the same time as acknowledging some of those challenges. What we mainly know is it's rarely one single thing. That leads people to maybe get into crisis or feel that their health, mental health is adversely affected, usually a combination. Obviously, we're always talking about mostly, we're never absolutist. Everyone's going to have their own unique experience. Yes, all the issues that have been popped in the chat, they're really echoing what we're saying on the slides, really helpful. So how does it show up? And just, giving some examples of struggling emotionally with your well-being might not always present itself in easy to meet ways. It can show up as irritability of kind of somebody snapping, having a short temper. I always think behavior is it's like an open door that's slightly ajar, and the behavior is like the flag saying, hey, this is the only way I can express it right now, and we want to open the door and have a conversation. So look behind what might be the thoughts and the feelings and the lived experience of somebody where their distress is showing up in perhaps quite confrontational ways. We typically think of withdrawal, and that could be the case from someone, but it might also be masked, as we talked earlier. But maybe the other idea of withdrawal is also kind of, which we can miss, is someone keeping excessively busy. So there's a type of withdrawal, excuse me, but it doesn't mean isolation. It's almost like withdrawing from thinking and feeling by just keeping super busy all the time, always keeping your brain active and maybe working really hard and being quite perfectionist and getting everything done. It could be masking something more difficult, that those thoughts and feelings are a painful place to sit with. We might typically understand it. Yeah, we might notice, somebody not enjoying the things they normally enjoy. Maybe not so much a sadness, but like an absence of joy and pleasure. Affecting our sleep, which of course in turn affects our physical health and as well as our mental health. Might not just be too little, but could be too much as well. Okay. Physical symptoms, that integration, we have this artificial distinction between our bodies, our minds, and our emotional well-being, but they are intrinsically linked. We are a holistic being. We don't separate things off, and one thing can show up or affect the other. We also know that our emotional struggles, our mental health, if it's not so good at the moment, can really affect our attitude to risk taking. So maybe increase our impulsivity, maybe decrease our inhibitions, for example. We can also see how that might link with the self-medication example I used of somebody perhaps say, using alcohol, lowering inhibitions and increasing our chances of taking risks. So I'm just seeing some fantastically important comments in the chat here. Lovely example there, Paul, of kind of somebody taking the time to probe, when you said you've had a shit week, tell me what's been going on, so using those things and to open that door further to inquire. I call it compassionate curiosity. So how can we bring curiosity to others from a compassionate space? We're not wanting to know why, how did that happen? We're wanting to know how have you been left feeling? What's on your mind? What's life like for you at the moment? Yeah. Okay. So consequently, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, we know there are protective factors, just like there are with our physical health. If I asked you to talk about what would be risk and protective factors for, say, heart disease, you'd be able to name those. And we have just the same idea for our mental health as well. Things that we know are statistically and research proven, and you have a strong evidence base to support our mental health. And I think the key message here is those things don't need to be big, expensive, complicated. Often the most powerful protective factors are the small things we do regularly. And again, those of you involved in the sheds, of course, know this. That's why you are, giving your time and energy and goodwill to taking part. So, things like connection, routine, purpose, you know more than many of how important that can be. Shared belonging. This idea of belonging is so incredibly powerful. And belonging in a peer way without belonging a sense of burden, but a sense of belonging that is around give and take, being part of something together, being there for each other, keeping busy. Often if we move our bodies, it can really help our mental health. So we know, for example, if we can just take that one step. So we may wake up in the morning and we may feel that, getting out of bed just feels too much. We feel too heavy, too weighed down to do that. But the statistics show us if we just actually can get our feet on the floor and we can get our body out of the bed, it immediately has an impact on how we feel. I'm sure everybody can connect to that. So that movement, that activity, and yes, Nick's popped in. Yeah, the 5 ways to well-being. Yeah, really easy to find on the internet. Good sleep and rest, the quality of that. Talking and being heard, so relevant, and talking, yes, but being heard being the key here. So when we're listening to somebody, we're not just listening to what they tell us, but we're listening out for what it means to them. So you could have 10 people who've all perhaps been through a similar experience. Maybe let's take retirement as an example. But those 10 people have all been through that experience, but there'll be 10 different versions of what it means to them and how it impacts them. So we bring that compassionate curiosity to finding out, hey, what does this mean to you? What's going on? How is it? So yeah, meaningful activity, purpose, that we're needed, having a sense that we're needed and what we can do can make a difference. And that structure, but also we know helping others, contributing to others, being there for other people can have a profound impact on our own mental health and well-being. So what are some of the things you're all doing when you're in your sheds and you're supporting each other? What's a lot of good practice in the chat, a lot of experience. So the first one is the noticing. Hey, look, here's some behavior that's shown up. I've noticed. What else could that be telling me? If I open up a conversation, I might have a better understanding of what's going on the inside, because right now all I can see what's happening on the outside. And how do we start those conversations? So the best way is, what have we observed? What's led us to have some concern? So, hey, I've noticed you've been a bit quieter than usual. How are things going? Something as light as that. We often can think, do you know what? I just don't know what I can do to help. I don't think there's anything I can do to help. This person's situation isn't going to get better. But it's that human connection, somebody noticing, somebody wanting to hear what life is like for me at the moment. That's the thing that could be transformational. Yeah, and we've got a great example. We ask someone and they say fine, and we say, yeah, well, how are you really? Because I've noticed this, and I care about you, and I really want to hear more about how life is. Wanting to fix things is very seductive. We like solving problems. Yeah, the ask twice rule, exactly, Emma. That's yeah, just what I was saying, ask twice. And we kind of so often, in life, we being a problem solver is super important. Being able to fix things, to find solutions is important. But this is one of the areas where we want to try and resist the desire to fix things for people. So listening and really hearing without coming up with, have you tried? What about? Or not at least until someone's felt really heard. You probably know yourself. If you wake up with a bad back and you say to your friend, oh, my bad back is really bad today, sometimes you just want them to say, hey, God, I'm sorry, that must be exhausting. How has it been for you this last week? But actually, what we don't want so much is someone to say, have you tried the physio down the road? We just want them to know how it feels to be us. So we might get into kind of suggestions later or helping someone think about what might help them. But yeah, definitely listening with trying to fix and bringing our calm, non-judgmental. And what we mean by that is we all make judgments all the time. We're going to have ideas come into our mind. Oh, I had a friend who went through that last year, or oh, that sounds a bit similar to what I was going through a couple of years ago. And we want to just notice those judgments and let them aside and just try and understand, hey, I've heard other people, think in my own mind, yeah, I've had other experience of this, but what's this person's experience? Let me really bring my full attention to understanding how it is for them. Okay. And I was thinking just about the non-judgmental thing. I think one of the drivers, just to go kind of back to that bit about this, that's really hard for us all, is we often want to look on the bright side. We want to say, oh, well, at least you've got this going well, or yeah, but you had that great holiday last week. So we want to remind ourselves the person is where they are, and it's not helpful to try and put silver lining around what they're telling us. We want to really hear how it is for them. Yeah, absolutely. Again, some really lovely conversations going on in the chat. And I'm sure we know, if we're really worried about someone's safety imminently, we do need to act. And we never put ourselves, so we might need to get other people to help us in a situation. We never put ourselves at harm. And really importantly, again, in the work you're doing and the participation you're doing in your sheds is, how am I in this? Am I the right person to have a chat with this person right now? How do I look after my own well-being? Maybe actually it's a little bit close and now somebody now someone's asking something of me and I think, do you know what, I've already had a conversation this morning and I think maybe I need to have a bit of time out myself. Obviously, this is a light introduction. We can't go into too much detail, but there's some really good pointers here. And again, some great experience in the chat. Yeah, really a good question from Paul. I can see I will just come to that as I think it's a really useful question about whether you might accompany people to a medical appointment. I think obviously you've got your own policy and you said you've shied away from it. I think there's no right or wrong here, like with most things. And I think one of the things that we know, though, is that transition piece of people perhaps knowing their GP could help, but finding that hurdle of actually getting there. So making the appointment and getting themselves there on the day, but also being able to say what they need to say in the appointment. And that's going to be a decision for you guys. But some of the reasons is to go. I think there's a few things. One I think is I think someone said they were writing some information on how to talk to your GP about your mental health. The
Yeah,
mental health
that's me.
charity. Yeah, lovely, Paul. Excellent idea. So maybe going through that with someone could be really helpful. Mind also have a really excellent leaflet on their website on that too. But it may be also thinking with someone, what do you think might get in the way of you making that appointment or getting to the appointment? What might help you get there? Who might help you get there? Who else is in the picture? And trying to understand. And if someone is really isolated and maybe there's someone else they have a connection with, there's no reason why that couldn't be a possibility subject to your own policies and procedures. But generally, people often find it really helpful if they think it's quite a big hurdle to step over to get to the appointment on the day. And to know that our intention can change in the moment. We can be completely dedicated to going to an appointment, but actually the reality of that could be different. So I think having someone alongside us, if that's what that person thinks is helpful, can be great. So as well as those boundaries, so you're going to have your internal processes, but and the important thing is like why you're making the decisions and how you're making the decisions, I think. Does that help, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to ask or?
Well, I was just going to say the guidance about accessing GP appointments will draw very heavily on NHS England guidance.
Yeah.
Also, my experience as chair of a patient participation group as well, where we trialled it before it went live with the general public.
Yeah, fantastic. So helpful. I think anything that helps get over all these hurdles, these potential barriers, so important. And just know we don't have to be an expert to make a difference. We just need to be an ordinary human being, you know, connecting with somebody, and being there with them, being alongside them, not having the answers and the solutions. I think as an organisation, I already know just from talking briefly to Arshad and hearing what Paul's saying, you've got lots of good connections, but just reminding ourselves about some different sources of support. And there are quite a lot for men as well, men's meetup groups, talk club, things like that, as well as the things on the screen. So just keep an eye on the chat at the same time. And the other thing to talk about as well in terms of thinking about therapies as well, you know, different types of therapies. And it's all like we're all the best expert in ourselves. You know, we know what's going to suit us. One kind of talking therapy support would suit one person, and another person might need something different. And it can be quite overwhelming understanding what to expect. And that's one of the ways we can help somebody transition of that hurdle. If you don't know what to expect, it's very hard to put yourself in that situation. So the Transpire website actually has some really great information on their website on different types of therapies and how to find a therapist and how to access it. So that can be a great starting point as well. Okay, so just move on to hearing Arshad and Paul. I'm not sure which of you is going to speak to this slide, but over to you.
Sorry, it will be myself. Just
please don't apologise. That's delightful. Go ahead. Yeah, off you go.
Bear with me.
Can you see the slide okay?
Yes, I can. That's
amazing.
Fine. So the slide is basically just from a health and well-being point of view, to let everybody know that look after yourself and each other. So Men's Health Weeks, and this week is a really good week, where Men's Health Week is a good reminder to reflect on oneself. And something we already do well at Sheds is that we actually look out for each other. So a men's shed is not just a place for woodworking or practical projects, but the real essence of a shed goes much deeper. So having projects are just a doorway. So what truly defines a men's sheds is the community, the purpose, and the well-being it creates. So just talking more, and we have touched on this in the chat. Shed environment allows us to talk openly without pressure or fear. So sometimes just having a chat can take a weight off your shoulders. And you don't necessarily need to have all the answers, but just talking and being listened to can make a massive difference. And in the shedding world, this is what we describe as shoulder-to-shoulder support. And having those conversations, which happens naturally while doing something else, rather than a formal sit-down discussion, which doesn't seem to work with men. Another point about staying active. What we do here matters. So we need to be keeping busy, not only utilising and using our hands, but getting out the house and having that drive to really connect and socialize with others. It's good for the body and for the mind, and passing on life skills and experience. So learning from one another and each other, regardless of ability, and keeping knowledge alive, whether that's woodworking, fixing, really life lessons to be learned. And it's not about productivity, it's about participation. So we really do need to get involved with your local shed. The point about checking your health, I think we're all guilty of putting things off. But if something is not right, we really do need to get it checked out. A quick visit to the GP can save a lot of trouble later on. And I know this varies of where you live to book an appointment, but I would like to say that this has been discussed at our health and wellbeing group, and I know Paul is compiling a document regarding this, so this will be shared soon. Looking out for your mates. We've discussed this. It has been come up on the comments box with regards to looking out for mates. If you notice someone's a bit quieter than usual, just check in. A simple "are you all right" can go a long way, and that might prompt further conversation to happen and find out what that individual is actually going through. And I just wanted to say, with regards to the ending of the slide, is you don't have to sort everything out on your own. And that's what the shed is about. It's about always getting each other's backs and knowing that somebody's there for you. And as a health and wellbeing lead, my job is to try and signpost and try to get you involved with third-party organisations and to try and bridge that gap, as well as the health and wellbeing group. So we are here to help you guys. So please, if you have any questions, please contact your local ambassador, come directly to me, or please get involved and post your questions via WhatsApp or Facebook or social media or however you feel comfortable with, and we will try and tackle those and try to bridge those gaps together. So my final piece is a place to belong, talk, share, and feel valued. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Arshad. Really helpful. And just to cover off, just in the last couple of minutes, Emma's helpfully put into the chat the link for the incredible resources on the Transpire Training website, toolkits that cover all kinds of different mental health conditions, outline further learning. And so she's put the link there in the chat. Really encourage you to have a look at that. And also in terms of further training available at Transpire Training, a whole range of courses relating to mental health and well-being. So courses that help you to become a mental health first aider, also grief first aid, and courses on neurodiversity as well, and suicide first aid, as well as many others. A quick mention from me just before I go to the next slide is there was a comment about AI, and I think being helpful, and I think of course we can understand all the ways in which it's really helpful, but just actually as Arshad has said, it's not sophisticated enough when people are in crisis or at risk of harm or making decisions that are not in their best interest. It's just AI is not sophisticated enough. So many people are finding it helpful to discuss kind of ordinary things and get a perspective. But I definitely say don't use it alone, like maybe to enhance other things, but definitely not advisable when there's any risk of harm at play. Does that make sense with everybody? And yeah, just kind of the greatest thing is to think I don't really know what to say, but I'm here. And I think, often we feel such a pressure to know or to say the right thing or that we're going to cause harm. But actually, even when we don't know what to say and just saying, hey, I don't really know what to say, but I'm so glad you're talking to me, or I just want you to know I care, can be like honestly transformational. So I just want to say, thank you so much for giving up an hour of your time to be here today to think about this really important topic. We'll be here for a bit. If you have any questions you want to ask privately, you can do that within the chat. You can just select me or Emma from the drop-down chat. But we are almost, we are exactly at 3 o'clock.
Can
Emma,
I ask one general question, Laura?
Yes.
You said at the beginning that there's a recording of this that people could access. How does one access it? Because I'd like to pass it on to several members of our shed to have a look at.
Our shed. I can see.
I will answer that for you. Thank you. So basically, what we're doing is Transpire Training don't normally record their recordings or their webinars, but they have, as an exception, done so today. So we are in conversation with them. It will get uploaded for 30 days. I will post out the link in due course once this recording has finished. But we are also trying to speak with Transpire to try and see if we've got that recording for future, so people can go and revisit at their convenience and at their time. I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Arshad. Absolutely. Okay. So we've reached the end of the webinar. Emma, over to you.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I'm going to stop the recording now, just in case anyone does want to ask any questions that they'd rather not be on recorded.
Yes.
If that's all good with you as well, Arshad. Yeah, lovely.
Perfect. Yeah. Any other questions?